Hello, hello. Welcome to Wacky Times. It couldn't be any crazier than it's been the last few days. Yes, everybody's still talking about the Trump assassination attempt. Um, they're talking about JD Vance. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. Did you know that Robert Menendez just got convicted, found guilty on 18 counts? That sounds like that golden boomerang I talk about that Trump throws around. So, anyways, let's just cover a couple things really, really quick, and then we're going to get to our amazing guest. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal show today. I'm very, very excited about this. Real quick, if you're here, like, follow, and share, please. As you know, if you're on Rumble, they knock off about 200 of you a week at least, and then most of you find your way back to resubscribe again, and we really, really appreciate that. Now they're even doing it to my wife. How funny is that? So she doesn't want to be part of what you're doing. Let me unsubscribe your wife from you. Just crazy. So, anyways, real quick, as I hinted to yesterday, I created a kind of an expose today on Nicholas Veniamin's show, so you may want to watch that later, where I'm actually, instead of being on the one side where everything you see is absolutely a movie and scripted, or everything is deep state actions and there's no control and we have no idea what's going on, I come up with a completely different conclusion where I believe there's an element of looking through the project looking glass to make determinations and making moves based on that. Sounds wacky. I know that's tinfoil hat city. I get it. It's only an interesting theory, but it really adds up. So you guys should check that out on Nicholas Veniamin's channel. Some of it may blow you away. I'm getting huge reviews on it. And honestly, I was a little bit concerned about putting it out, thinking that people may just think I'm a whack job. So, but I probably am a whack job. In regards to JD Vance, now, if you want to go full conspiratorial, I see the pictures of JD Vance and President Trump next to each other. President Trump's 6'3". Vance is supposed to be like 5'7", yet they're the same height. How do you like that dramatic pause? You guys figure that one out. That's crazy. So there's a lot of things showing that JD Vance is a deep state asset. Let me just remind you before we come to that conclusion. Do your digging, but let me just remind you of this. President Trump, right? I believe that he infiltrated the Jesuits, the Zionists, and the Freemasons. If I'm right, he infiltrated those in order to gain their support until, of course, he came down the golden escalator. And what happened? Oh, no, we've been had. Everybody hates Trump suddenly. I think the same thing could be possible with JD Vance, or maybe they traded him out. Who knows? The point is, this is a wacky, wacky world we're living in, and we have to try to figure this out. Therefore, I love the guests that we have on today. So let's, without further ado, let me do this real quick. That's screwbiggov.com. Go there, please, screwbiggov.com. You know, we get torched on all of our social media. I don't know how many times we've replaced these channels. Good news is you can always find the latest link here. Just click on the icons on the top. If you want to learn more about the Unity Tour or the movies, Cages, or any of the 20 films that we've done, they're all there. And of course, if you want to get using any of our wonderful products, pet products, the health products, go there also. And of course, if you, I'm not asking for donations, but the link is there. But if you go the one to the right, even more I appreciate is the prayers that come through on Give, Send, Go than even the donations. So that's awesome. And for I don't know where's Robert's thing. Oh, well, we'll get that another day. But anyways, go to Robert's Renegade Media. That's his Telegram where he does a lot of summary on things that we do here. There it is. Thank you, Lisa. So just follow him on Telegram, Renegade Media. All righty. So now I'm lost, Lisa. Can you click to the next screen, please? All righty, there they are. I'm going to address a couple things really quick, and then I'll introduce our guests. Interesting enough, it was very obviously that Clay diverted not once, but 3 times. He was very uncomfortable with that conversation for some reason. And I don't like when these I don't call them political people. Let's just call them these DOD type people. Say things like Cash just did.
There's some different things there. So that's how the surname or surname, serpent name. I'm using those words. It's how they've evolved, the root words, etc. It's where they all derive from. So it's a Roman thing of administering the people. Uh, in the modern times, so to speak, or Christian era, um, Justinian, the emperor, 530 to about 569 AD, he wanted a way to administer the people, the illiterates, as they call them, and that's what they used was a text that's all capitalized Latin, but it's not, it's all corrupted. And so if you look at all the paperwork in the courts, it's all corrupted paperwork. It doesn't mean what it says it, or what people try to insinuate it says. And like I said, that all ties to the last name and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps.
No, that's great. So do you see anything that would allow the baddies to do this in the, let's say, the pre-1871 founding fathers papers, the Constitution, and so on and so forth? And I say pre-1871 because there was manipulation in 1871 and in the 1930s, which clearly made everything a corporation. So do you think prior to that, is there anything that they could have legally or lawfully, I should say, done this, in your opinion?
I mean, in my opinion, I've not come across it. So there's nothing lawful about it. Nothing lawful at all.
Right.
I've not come across anything that would suggest that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
There's always I guess, the excuse or justification of people's ignorance, because we're talking about a massive commercial system. That's what it is. It's all to do with commerce and banking, and basically the government administrations, the banksters, and the corporations have all conspired together to what's going on, and they've legally kidnapped everybody into the legal world as a fictional person to operate them in commerce, rather than as the creditors. We are the money. There's not even real money in the world, and that's not my opinion. People want to research that. They can go and look up a guy called Dr. Richard Werner, Werner, out of Germany, and he did a 16-year empirical study. He's done many other things since then, but he proved that banks don't lend money and they don't take deposits. They are in the business of buying and selling security instruments, which is what this whole system is based on. If people were allowed to be, which they should be, to be administered as the creditors as they are, so to create the debt through their commercial person and then discharge the debt as the living creditor, which is what House Joint Resolution 192 and the Emergency Banking Act 1933 was about. If people were administered that way, then there wouldn't be the issues. But because they're not being administered that way, there are the issues. And the issues are certain people. It's not the issue, in my opinion, is not the system. The issue is the people who are managing and administering the system.
Right, right. And then, so ultimately, what they've done is, I agree. By the way, we are the currency. It's been very, very clear. And then, but the baddies take it so far because they've manipulated everybody to believe that this is legitimate when it's exactly the opposite. And where they can't impose on our, let's say, our fictitious self, right? Where they can't impose on that directly, what they do is they run it through what I call a corpocracy. So, for example, and then you get corporations that enforce it, and then some police, it seems like that you ran into, also enforce something that's completely illegal because of the corporations are the ones complaining.
Well, again, there's the issue between legal and lawful. Legal is something written by somebody somewhere. So if they're writing rules and presuming that they're laws, that's one man writing a rule to rule over another man, and that's unlawful. You can't do it. So it's all to do with this presumption and assumption, and that's what to do with the mandates. When they put a mandate out, they're saying it's a mandate on behalf of the people. And if the people don't say anything, well, then it sticks. But the problem is they don't view the people as the people, they view them as persons. I mean, the legal system is the art of rhetoric and argument. That's what it's based off. Mm-hmm. Attorneys, they're in the business of turning something that this might be a mug, and they're in the business of turning this mug into something else.
That's right.
The language that they use,
American Sign Language,
to administer everything is American Sign Language. It's so everything in the all capitalized language, and this is the stuff I said about Richard Werner is irrefutable. The stuff I'm saying now about the language is irrefutable. Mm-hmm. It is sign language. Sign language. So they're mixing sign language in the Latin construct, all caps, with English under the grammatical rules of English and palming it off as English. That is uttered by law, not legal, law. That's uttering and tendering a counterfeit document. Mm-hmm. But because people have been indoctrinated to believe that it's English, then it's presumed that, well, you must know. So you agree. Well, I just look at the whole legal system. They always have a justification for something somewhere at some point in time because mm-hmm. it's all based on deceit and fraud.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're always going to have it. It's like going down a dark alley in Detroit where I live, getting mugged and beaten from behind, and then someone saying, well, it's your own fault that you didn't know they were there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I call it the Babylonian system because it
is a Babylonian system. Yeah.
That's the system that we're in. Christine, yeah. What's your take on things?
I mean, it's one thing to learn about all of these things. It's in theory and to research and to read up on it. It's a whole nother thing when you're actually putting it to the test and going through it. And his case started 4 years ago, and based on where things are at and where things have kind of paused and come almost to like a stalemate of sorts, it shows that, because he's taken what he's researched and learned and he's using it and putting it in place. And the system doesn't know what to do with it. And, and now I'm a lot newer into the system than he is. My legal stuff started last summer, a year ago. And then, so I have the administrative law, business stuff happening with my salon. But then I also, on a personal side, I'm going through a messy divorce. And that is also creating a situation where it's bringing in outside agencies. In Michigan, we have something called Friend of the Court. Friend of the Court is supposed to be the agency that facilitates parenting time and child support and things like that. And so 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks ago, I had an attorney for my divorce up until April, and I fired that attorney because he was doing what attorneys do. They just racking up the billable mm-hmm. the billable hours, wasn't getting anything accomplished. He's in on it. He's in on it just like
they work for the court.
They work for the court, just like my ex-husband's attorney is in on it. And so they are very upset with me in the court system because I'm now representing myself. So every time we have court, I get to speak for myself. I don't have what they want is they want me to get new representation so that I no longer can be my own mouthpiece. And so on a Zoom court hearing, which is not legal anyway, but they had us on a Zoom court hearing 2 weeks ago. And I think I said, 14 times on record that I did not consent. I asked for the judge's oath and the other attorney's oath. I asked for their bond information. I brought up the fact that I asked the judge to show me the flag that was sitting next to him in the courtroom. He wouldn't
yellow fringe.
Do it. They showed the flag, but you couldn't see the fringe, and he wouldn't acknowledge when I said on record, and I called out the whole fringe thing about it being a military court. I even said, what code is it?
Like
U.S.
It's Army regulation.
Army regulation.
AR 840-10. So tells you where the flags. So it's the flag, the United States flag with the gold fringe It's a military flag. And the Army regulation book, the manual, tells you exactly where it can be placed, shown. It tells you the sizes, where it can be hung, how it can be hung, all the rules or military laws for that. Those flags are in the courts. So clearly they're military courts. Just to point one thing out. So men and women, so man means both men and women. Men and women don't represent themselves. They present themselves because they're living. And this is the whole problem with the hoax in the courts.
Yes.
They want you to claim. So this is all to do with the Corpus Juris, Justinian the Emperor in 530 AD, and then in 1230 AD it was Asurius or Mercurius, however you say his name. He reformatted it in the modern era of how the people are administered. To this day, this is how they do it through the Bar Association. The bar is from the City of London, which is nothing to do with England. It's a private municipality, and the Inns of Courts is the Temple Bar. That's where it all comes from. And when you get called to the bar, and whatever they say about the American Bar Association, the Michigan Bar Association, all the franchises, when they get called to the bar, they're getting called to the Temple Bar, whichever court, the middle inn, the lower inn, and they're swearing an oath to the Temple Bar, which is nothing to do with America
or the Constitution.
They are foreign agents, and they are defined. And it is so. A lot. If it's my opinion, I'll tell you it's my opinion. But a lot of the things I'll reference are record and public record, irrefutable facts. The flag is army regulations. That's the rules. That's the laws. With the oaths of office, none of them have any oaths of office. Statutes at large, 6th Article, 1 Stat 23. That is how it has to be done. They're not executed that way, and the language that they're written in is completely and utterly incorrect, so they don't say what they say anyway. The language, Chicago Manual of Styles, 16th edition, 17th edition. In the 17th edition, it's on pages 665 and 666, ironically enough, and that is foreign languages, and it tells you exactly that. It's pretty straightforward. So, Christine relays a bunch of these things, and just to be clear, I don't ever practice legal. I don't have anything to do with legal. All of this is entertainment, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm waiting right now.
At the end of the day, it's farcical. It's make believe. The Bar Association is registered as an acting guild, and they're acting. That's what they're doing. That's why there's statutes and acts, and it's like ourselves are saying you can't do that, and there's no laws to say you can do that, and everything you're doing is fictional. That's the reality.
So, the thing that's going to be interesting with mine is that, I do want a divorce. So how do we navigate through this? So I'm basically having to tell the court that you don't have jurisdiction over me. I don't have to participate in this government agency thing called friend of the court. The recent Chevron ruling, I think, has to come into play on that whole friend of the court issue.
Oh, yes, it does.
Also comes into play with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights issue that I have on the other side of it. So, it's going to be real interesting to see if I survive the next couple weeks, because on the 22nd, the 23rd, I have jury trial for custody. And I physically have to walk into the courtroom, and I'm going to be in their domain saying all of these things. And are they going to end up putting me in jail for contempt of court? I don't know. But I'm willing to find out, because at some point, we cannot keep being afraid. We have to meet them head on. We have to put our feet in the sand, and we have to say, no more. We're done. You do not have jurisdiction over me. I am not a criminal, and I'm not going to participate in your games. And so it's going to be interesting in the next 2 to 3 weeks to see what happens. I might have to start the telephone game. I'll make one phone call, and then that triggers other phone calls. Because if I end up in jail, I'm going to need you guys to draw attention to it.
Well, there's a few things of it that, unfortunately, they create the environment for people to argue, and then when people argue, they don't cut through. And we're all guilty. I was guilty of it as well. But when we argue, that's what they want.
Yeah. The
reality is, you can challenge jurisdiction anytime. This is not advice to anyone. When I was in a situation, which I was, that's what I did. Challenge jurisdiction, because they're not administering men and women. I don't use the last name, the surname, the surname. I don't use it except in commerce, but it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
A house name, if we go back into history and think about coats of arms, that's what it is. So even on the birth certificate, I could show anybody on their own birth certificate. You'll see the English Christian name, as in myself as James Matthew, and that's written in English as it should be, capitalized J. And then there's spaces, a specific amount of spaces, and then there's the surname, which is in all capitals. There's no joinder between the two names. One is the Christian, one is the surf name. But that all caps language is a representation of something else in a word format, like a word mark. And so, I would suggest it's a representation of a coat of arms that would be historically tracked even further back than the Roman Empire, back all the way back to Babylon. They would have these records of family estates. Now, I know with my coat of arms, that goes back to at least the early 1100s in Scotland, but the actual name goes all the way back to ancient Alexandria. So there's obviously a historical record of people's estate names as they've gone through time and history, and that's what they've tried to, or that's what they have attached to the Christian name, and women that they are.
So if we can quantify it real quick on this one, maritime law versus common law, is that not what we're dealing with?
Sort of. There's divine law, natural law, then there's common law, but then under that you've got, there's these different variations.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, no man can write rules to rule over another man without consent, especially in the United States.
Right.
So there is no way that it can be done. And of course, the justification from the government administrations, and I don't call them government because they're not. In this country, in the 50 nations that we have, they are the government administration. We are the government. And that needs to be, that should be taught in all the schools. You are the government, not the administrative agencies and whatever they are before, or were before, and are in the future, corporations, whatever that structure is. They're not the government. They're the administrative bodies to carry out our wishes. That should tell everybody who's supposed to be in charge. And I guess I don't know how else to say it. I don't really know.
So here's the challenge that I've had is I deal with a lot of these court cases, and I've given some advice to some, and I've written some documents, so on and so forth. So you have the legal aspect, which is obviously the corporation, the Babylon system, that they're trying to pin us into, which we should pretty much run from. But then you have what I call the common law aspect, right? Where you can
supposed to be the law of the land. Do no harm to another. That's it. Do not trespass.
You can get your own de jure sheriff if you want, and form your own grand juries and do all these things. The challenge I've had with both sides, I'll call it both sides, is the legal side and the common law side, is they're both operating in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is the legal people, they're just absolutely clueless that they're working with the bar, which is just completely unlawful, and it's just horrible. They don't even know what they don't know. And then you have the common law people have a lot of information that tried to do everything through common law. And then I say, and I mean, they've done affidavits, writs, and they say, oh, we've held this guy accountable. I said, well, how exactly did you hold him accountable? Well, we served him. I said, well, he operates in his mind in the legal system. So the challenge I've had with the common law people is until there is a jail that's held by we the people, and you could actually hold somebody through a grand jury and then hold them physically accountable, and see what the deep state does against that, see if you can hold them off. I said, it's not effective. I said, but I think I have a solution. And President Trump and some others have said this all the time. I think it's clues. They always say these things. We have to do things legally and lawfully, together in one sentence, legally and lawfully. And so the advice I've been giving people lately, and we're starting to get some traction, is go into the legal system because that's where they try to drag you into, but then do everything through common law language, right? So
Well,
what you're doing is you're drawing them into your realm instead of working in theirs, and that's the direction I said. And then that's, I think, number one, you get it on some record, so you did it correctly. That's number one. Number two is, I think, often these judges, so-called judges, I call them, they self-destruct, and they don't even know what to do if you're very good at pursuing this. So I don't think avoidance does any good, because under the corporate brown shirt structure, they're just going to put you in their corporate jail.
Yeah.
you have to respond to all correspondence. So we're supposed to administer ourselves. The people are supposed to administer themselves. And so, to be clear, the legal system is for commerce. That's where it should stay. Has no business dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
The courthouses have courtrooms, and the court is the paper. And for example, if it was Lewis, if you said, I came home drunk one night and I smashed up your bushes outside and there's a bit of a vandal, you would have a right to write that claim out, take that claim to the court. I take my response. If I don't respond to you and the court, then I'm silently agreeing that, well, yeah, I didn't defend myself. So he who doesn't defend, who says nothing,
It's convicted.
that's it. So, but we're supposed to, one individual takes their claim, so it's claimants. No, it's not defendants and plaintiffs. It's none of that business. It's a claim. There's a claim, and somebody made the claim, and then you counterclaim if you can. If you did it, you're supposed to be honourable, hold your hand up, and say, "I did it." Lewis, what did it cost? What's it going to cost me to repair all this? I'll take care of it, no problem, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We decide we're supposed to do that. That's how we're supposed to be administrated. The situation with the birth certificates, they're supposed to be in a state there. That's our inheritance of the earth. I'm not a religious guy, but the Bible, I read it when I was in jail, cover to cover. The only time I've read it, cover to cover. I've started reading other versions of it, but there's lots of things in there that relate to the way the commerce system operates, because it is a book of trust law. It is a book of.
That's right.
That's what it is. Outside of what anyone takes, and everybody's free to choose what they take in of a context, but that is in literal form what it does. So it provides things like in Job 32:21, let no man place a person or a title upon you. If we think about that and then think about all these titles they try to give us, Mr., Mrs., Sir, all these different things. The surname is a title on the end, not on the front.
Mm-hmm.
So all these titles, we're not supposed to have them. We're supposed to go by the Christian name in the Bible as well. Only in his name shall you be saved. That means the Christian name. So, and it's, first and middle name, there's not, it's just your Christian name. They're all one name. If you've got four, still, if you've got four names, great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that we're supposed to be administered on that creditor side in the courthouses, in the courtrooms, and the court is our paperwork, backwards and forwards. It's, you say, you did this, and I say, well, here you go, now it's back in your court. You say, no, it's back in your court. And that's the way it's supposed to go, and we're not supposed to have any of this business. Not supposed to have Child Protective Services coming in on the fact that mum, after having basically what can only be described as surgery, childbirth, right, some sort of medical situation, right away immediately is being coerced, no full disclosure, to register something.
Because she's the informant.
Right, and it says on the birth certificate, informant. And it's not even the living entity. It's the second body alive. So there's all these things that are at play, whereas it's supposed to be simple. And I agree with what you're saying about it's the common law, it's the law of the land. The people are supposed to administer themselves, their estates, the head of the family, and they're supposed to do it in simple fashion with these public officials there to oversee these simple, effective measures. So all the way back to the Magna Carta, it's supposed to be the Magna Carta, not the Unidroit, bar Talmudic to do the paperwork.
Well, like one of the problems I was running into in court, though, is every time I would object, or anytime I object, the judge he would basically say,
agree. Yeah. He'd just say overruled or whatever, and they've done it to me.
He would overrule me. Anytime that I brought up any point of anything that he didn't want to acknowledge, he just kept talking over me or would just continue on, move forward. I actually ended up having to make a motion. I said, I motion that this be adjourned. I'm done here. And I ended up hitting the leave button on the Zoom. And I exited the whole proceedings because I wasn't getting anywhere with them. And they just kept wanting to drag me into these arguments that were going to just keep me in the system. And so, that's an issue too. And so I feel like Monday when I go to court, it's probably going to come down to me saying, you can continue on with this trial to stroke his ego, but I'm not going to sit here and participate. I'm done. This is done. You don't have jurisdiction over me. Goodbye. And the question will be, will I actually be able to physically walk out of that courthouse, or are they going to detain me?
And this goes to the point that Lewis is making about paperwork. When you respond with the paperwork, they want people to engage. They want people to be in rhetoric and argument all the time. And the only way I know to deal with it is to challenge the jurisdiction, not argue about anything else, but use the public record, because public officials can't go against public record. They do, but I believe where you were going to, Liz, is the more paperwork you put in with, let's say, public record and challenge of jurisdiction with a public record of why you can't do it, the more you know and the more you do that, the more that you can have them back up. And that's really what's taken place with millions of people, I believe, is that we're all learning more. We're challenging jurisdiction and saying, well, based on all of this, show me where you have any jurisdiction. And that's forcing this backup of different situations with different people all over the world, not just in America. The issue I would say with what I've come to understand, these people are not going to stop until they're stopped. That's just, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing until they're stopped. So the more people that can understand, don't utilize, in my opinion, don't utilize the surname. It's not you. That's the first thing to try and understand. One of the things that helped me was a website called the Justinian Deception, justiniandeception.wordpress.com, and that's a guy called Romney Stewart, and it's all to do with the language. When I started reading about that and actually researching and seeing the different public record and the different tools that are available to make the points, it took a lot of emotion out of the situation for me, so I could start dealing with sort of very specific paperwork. Now, in dealing with my own situation, I got to help a gentleman that's a January 6th victim. And what I'm about to say is really, really important for millions of people, but specifically the J6s. They've been given the information to various people, but both politicians and other people are just ignoring it because they refuse to accept the truth because they've got the Stockholm syndrome. The gentleman in question, with assistance, he challenged the jurisdiction and the authority of the judge in his January 6th case. It's a Trevor Brown case, and I can give you the website. It's got all of the things recorded because I was the recorder of everything, all the information. And in that case, he challenged the jurisdiction and the authority, and the public record was provided from the National Archives, the Congressional Archives, the Bureau of Prisons Archives, testimony from the former Bureau of Prisons head, Harvey Lappin, I believe the name was, and various other public record archives to show there is no statute, rule, regulation, mandate, law, or anything else they want to describe it as, to allow for the unlawful conversion of a man or woman, an American man or woman, into a subject object. All statutory creations, and if there's no statute, if it doesn't exist, they don't have authority and they don't have jurisdiction. And that is, period, irrefutable. The public record's there to show that. It's been provided to lots of people to help the January 6ers. And again, the bar monkeys are aiding and abetting the treason against the people because they refuse to accept it. And that's just flat out the truth. It doesn't exist. Right. None of the J6ers, anything that's happened to them, whatever anyone wants to accuse them of, there is no statute to administer them or anybody else through the courts in the manner that they are. And so, I didn't need to go on a bit of a rant, but it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And I think that goes to your point of what you were saying about the paperwork and just being specific. Challenge this, present this, put it in your paperwork.
That's right. And so in the legal fiction corporate law that we deal with here, the judges are inherently cowardly anyways. They rarely make a decision unless there's precedence, something else that they can point to. So the beauty about us putting everything on record, right, especially if we get a win, now there's always precedence to point to this. And that's ultimately how we're going to bust through the system. Number two, which is the most important part, and I think we're just starting to figure this out, but not quite, is when we, the people, stand up in unison, we win, because we win through our public voice of force. It's our public voice of force that wins. And it's amazing because we've seen it time and time again. I proved it in Orange County with their so people showed up there and they're like, okay, yeah, we're not so we're more afraid of we the people than we are our controllers, is what they said at that moment. We see this precedence over and over again. And I've done the math, guys, and it's literally 1/10 of 1% need to show up in any given situation. And that's generally enough force for them to back down. Because the reason why they're in the system is because they're getting paid and they're cowardly to do the right thing anyways. So they're inherently cowards. So it's really easy to push them around if we step up in force. But the challenge is we don't. So they're like, we've got this. And they're going to keep pushing our buttons until we come in force. And speaking of that, Christine, would it be helpful or not helpful to have people show up there with you to support you, or do you think that's premature? What's your thought on that?
I honestly don't know. Like I'm gonna submit some paperwork, and I'm gonna have paperwork with me. I really, I mean, I don't know. Like if I can get in touch with or get a Zoom link for the judge's YouTube channel, I may end up posting that several different places for people to tune in, have somebody screen record it, because whatever happens does need to be documented. In the proceedings that we had 2 weeks ago, I didn't have a third device that was going to allow me to document it. But this next time, I'm going to have some things in place to make sure that I have my copy of the recording. I blindsided the friend of the court worker the other day when I called her out on something, and she tried to act like she didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, well, we can go back and listen to the recording if you'd like. And she said, you recorded me without my permission. And I said, well, I would think that as an employee of the state of Michigan, you would be well aware that in Michigan, only one party has to be aware of a recording. And yes, I most certainly did. You record all of your Zoom hearings, don't you? And she was not pleased. The conversation ended abruptly.
Good, beautiful. So for James and Christine, I know you're similar but separate situations. So where can people find or follow anything that you're involved in, Christine? You have social media links that you
Yeah,
get
I'm on
banned
social
from
media.
constantly?
Yeah, I'm on social media on Facebook under my name, Christine Geiger. And then I'm on X as Christine Geiger as well, and that's verified. And
You know, every time you say that last name, I watch James cringe.
It's real hard to sort of take it all in and change the habits of using it for everybody,
yeah,
even myself.
Yeah,
That's why I said the Romney Stewart stuff and reading about the language and watching his videos. There's another guy called Rowan Lorien that works with him. Just look up Justinian deception, and that makes it a lot easier to deal with understanding that the law enforcement, the government administrations, they're all administering persons. They're not administering people.
Mhm.
That's one entity, and because you say that you're that name,
you're
you're a loony illiterate because you can't read. You can't read that there's two languages on the paper. And I'm not being mean to people,
Mhm.
but one of the advantages that I see is that, well, the population might be illiterate, but that includes all the people that are administering. So when you can prove by public record, well, hang on a second, and this goes to your point of people turning up. The courthouses belong to the people, and if there's cases going on where people are being abused, which is pretty much every case in the country, there's a small percentage where people are actually committing crimes, but the rest of them, I mean, just in my opinion, I would support my friend. If I had a friend who was in my situation and knowing where I grew up, I know there would be hundreds of people that would go to the courthouse and they would just simply say, show me and show us where you have the authority to administer this man or woman in the manner that you're administering.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't do it because they're committing crimes.
Yeah.
They can't. The courts cannot do it. They cannot say that they're administering men and women as men and women because they're not.
Yeah. So, what would your final comments to our audience be, Christine, and then James?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll keep you updated on whether or not I successfully continue to stand up to this establishment on both fronts, personal and for Studio 8 Hair Lab's case. Studio 8 Hair Lab goes in front of the administrative law judge via telephone again on August 22nd, unless they delay it some more. The state seems to be delaying this either to get it closer to the election or to buy themselves time to figure out how they're going to win this. So just stay tuned, I guess.
Interesting.
And always stand up and fight. Like even when you don't think that you should, that's probably exactly when you need to. So the more of us that do it, the faster that we're going to change the world.
Rights are not given; they're rights. So stand up for them.
And if you don't
know yourself, reach out to people. There's lots of resources now, including yourself, for people to learn from. For me, I'm not, just to answer your question, I'm not on social media. I keep very private. I don't like any social media. I've never liked it. I don't like to be on it. I don't put myself out there, and I don't put my story out there. If people want to ask, I'll talk to them about it. I come on and do interviews with different people. My specific case, I challenged the jurisdiction, and I did different things from the beginning. I had the judge abandon ship in the very first hearing. She abandoned ship in the case. And then since then has committed more crimes, and so has the court. I've filed various paperwork. I assisted on the January 6th case that I mentioned. I'll be happy to provide you all the documentation so people can go and read it. It's all there. All the information's there. My personal case, there's not really anything to follow except that because of all the paperwork that I put in, they basically won't speak to me anymore. I don't even go to the court, even for other things. That if I go to the courthouse, because I've caused so much havoc in those places, they see me coming with my colleague and they'll get the captain or whoever, not because there's this confrontation, they just know that I'm not going to tolerate their BS anymore, period, across the board. I don't care if it's Donald Trump or anyone else. If you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law.
Mm-hmm.
So with that case in November the 9th, 2023, myself and three other people filed a petition for redress of grievances in the House of Representatives in Michigan. We were the first ones to do it. There's other people that have done it in Texas and Colorado. And I filed also that paperwork I attached to my case and filed it in my case as well.
And I'm attached.
And this is what Christine's going to do as well. Well, within that petition was a treason complaint from more than two people, and that's now been presented to, or was presented to, a House representative and three other House representatives, and it's now gone to a sheriff as well.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I'll get to that. But ultimately, in that redress of grievances and treason, it relates to the biological weapons attack that extortion, kidnapping, and all these other things that take place because of that attack. It's backed up by over 5,000 pages of evidence, which is, in the most part, mechanical engineering, engineering reports, engineering standards and protocols that basically is the entire global reporting system for the standards of engineering. So if they want to say that's not how it happened, they would have to go against their own standards of reporting systems and structures. So we put that in. It's been ignored. The state representatives are being blocked from reading it on the House floor, which is an obligation. It then got sent to Lauren Boebert. It also got sent to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Both of those offices have it. And I believe it's been given to the House Judiciary Committee as well. And literally, it involves a global attack on the population and all the other things that I just related. So people can look that up.
Isn't that all? That's all happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks, as far as the judiciary
yes,
and Marjorie Taylor.
A lot of that stuff's happened since in time frame that I met Christine, and just so people are aware, and the things I said on that question to Kash Patel about providing the paperwork to show that President Trump, Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, Peter Navarro, myself, all the J6s, and anyone else that's in the court case are being tracked. I was told that by two different friends who directly gave all of that documentation to Trump and Bannon's people. And of course, the Esquires poo-pooed it. So we then sent a whole bunch more stuff, which was irrefutable. I'll be happy to provide the email that was sent to Marjorie Taylor Greene with all of the same stuff that I just mentioned that went to those other people. I'll provide that for you. So basically, you've got the J6 case and all the documentation there. The stuff that went to Marjorie Taylor Greene that's gone to all these other people, I'll provide that. And then my stuff, Christine puts it into her case, and I'm sure she can provide you with the different information, because I can give you all the documents. So I can provide all of it, and then
I can upload them to the Telegram group for the chat, and then you can.
That'd be awesome.
Then people can go and ask their public officials why they're not in office, why they don't have a proper oath of office, why they don't have a fidelity bond, and why they're administering the people in an unlawful manner. And here's all the public record that says you are.
Excellent. Well, as you might say, this was brilliant. And I really appreciate both of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, Christine, if you can get some information over me, I'll keep exposing on all of my channels, because I don't think enough people are talking about this, frankly. So I think it's very, very important. So I appreciate your courage for both of you, and thanks for coming on. And now it's time for me to do some housekeeping.
Yeah. Appreciate you. Thanks. Remember AR 840-10, the military flags.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you very much. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Well, folks, that was awesome. And we have to pay for this stuff. So I will just, oh, there we go. Sorry.